Welcome to Table Talk, where there's always room at the table. I am your host, Jonathan Harmon of the J Harmon Home Team, and we can't wait to talk to these fine guests. Enjoy the show. And good afternoon, everybody. It's Jonathan Harmon of the J Harmon Home Team of Keller Williams, and this is Table Talk. And, Trent, when we started doing the show, we said, and we kind of changed a little bit, we said we wanted to have some uncomfortable conversations in a comfortable setting, and to set up an opportunity for lively discussion, possible disagreement, topics that quite honestly need to be talked about, but people just tend to avoid. And so when we were setting up the schedule and when we were first talking about this, one of the very first people that I thought of that I said, we got to have him on the show.
I remember you saying that.
Yep. One of my oldest best friends, Mr. Ken Hammonds. And you going to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big round of applause.
Okay. I saw your finger move like you were going to. When he was pointing to the live studio audience and telling them to clap, that's what I meant. Yeah.
I've never had a round of applause before. As it's dying down, someone screamed an obscenity at me. So.
No.
And so Hamm, as I call him, and pretty much everyone that knows you calls you, he and I used to coach wrestling together over at Blackman High School. And we were just kind of talking about the dates. That started in 2006. That's when my first year there.
Wow.
And I had a very short stint, much shorter than Hamm was there. You were there forever. Yeah. And now you've been at Wilson Central forever. Yeah. And Hamm is an exceptional coach, an exceptional human being. And how many guys do you think you've coached?
Oh gosh. If you ballpark it at 25 a year since 1999,
yeah,
that's a lot.
That's a lot, and that's just the high school kids.
Yeah.
That doesn't include the kids clubs and.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's a couple thousand, I would guess at this point.
Oh gosh,
dude.
Hopefully, I made a positive impact.
Well, I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that would be like, oh.
I'm sure there's someone out there.
There's got to be somebody, right? But if you're doing that, you're wrong. Yeah. So let's say it that way. But in those years, you and I had all kinds of conversations, and you know me, I'm not afraid to ask dumb questions. And I think that the only way that we learn and we get better and we understand the controversial issues is to really hear both sides of a controversial issue, whatever it happens to be. Right. Whatever it happens to be. Oh, you know what? Before we move on, we got to pay the bills a little bit. So my friend Bryan Nale, Bryan, I almost forgot you, but I didn't. See, I came back. So Trent, will you roll Bryan's info?
Yes, sir.
Hey, my name is Bryan Nale. I'm a mortgage loan officer with Primis Mortgage, and I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission, and it helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's a true pleasure to be part of. There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976 or visit nailyourmortgage.com, and I'll be happy to talk with you.
Primis Mortgage is a subsidiary of Primis Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing opportunity. As always, all loans are subject to approval. Primis Mortgage, NMLS 1894879.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Bryan, thank you for supporting Spread the Positive and helping to spread the positive here in Middle Tennessee. If you do need mortgage help, definitely call Bryan. He's been on our This Week in Real Estate here yesterday, I guess, right, Trent?
Yeah. He was here earlier too.
Was he?
Yeah.
That guy, he is getting
busy,
all kinds of exposure there. That's because he's the best at what he does. He gives good advice without a lot of regard to himself. He really is a selfless dude. So thank you, Bryan. I knew that if we got started on this conversation, that there was no way I was going to remember to do that. So I was like, okay, let me interrupt myself.
That's awesome. Actually, I'm going to refer someone. The guy I was talking to you earlier about. I'm going to refer. So.
Brian's the man. And look, here's the thing about it is if it makes sense, he's going to tell you it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, he's not going to force it.
Okay.
And that's what I like about it. You know,
that's awesome.
Yep. So anyway, so we would have all kinds of conversations and we would just talk about, and I would ask you essentially what felt like dumb questions, right? And you were always so patient with me about my dumb questions, and you were always a teacher, you know?
I don't think I would call them dumb questions though. And I mean, like you said, I think a lot of things need to be discussed.
And I think that the only way that happens is with people that are level-headed, sitting down and truly wanting to learn.
For sure. And a lot of times I feel like in conversations, people do not feel that they're being heard. It's like people are listening in order to make the next comment, and they're not really considering what the other person's saying. I think that's a big problem that happens.
Yes. And you know, if you throw an uncomfortable topic in with uncomfortable silence,
yes,
people have to fill that with something. And so they're like, oh, we don't need a pause in here. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I think that's where building that relationship, having those, building a relationship that's based on friendship, like a true, honest to God friendship and a kinship, allows you to have those conversations.
For sure.
And for those of you that are just kind of catching up, specifically what we're talking about is we would have conversations about race, relations, history, you know, and in 06 to 09, it was always, I mean, it's always part of the dialogue, but it's since then, it's really,
yes,
I feel like it's become more a part of the dialogue. Would you say?
Oh, for sure.
And you know, why is that? That's the question. It's not like racial issues are new in the 20 teens that weren't around in the 20 whatevers.
For sure.
Is it just that there's what is it, I guess? Is there a bigger, what's the word I'm trying to say? Is there more ability for people to learn about injustices? So information age. Is there just finally an ability for people to express their opinion that they didn't have even in the 20s? What is it? Why is that?
I think it's a little bit of all of that. I think it's, first of all, it's come more to the forefront because everyone has a camera now. When there's before that, there was all sorts of deniability. Like anytime something happened, they thought you were embellishing, they thought you were lying or something like that. Now we still have a lot of ground to cover because you see these things. And for example, Ahmaud Arbery, you have situations like that happen. And immediately the narrative was, you know, this guy's been breaking in houses all over the neighborhood. I mean, even though there's no proof to it, it's immediately when an incident happens, you're the person that's most affected than anyone else, that person gets villainized. So I mean, and normally that's the start of sweeping it under the rug,
or making it their own fault.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
And so often you hear, well, let's just wait and see what all the details are.
Right. In a lot of cases, you may never know what those details are, or you get misinformation.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Why? So one of the topics, and just kind of filling in this gap because this won't be apparent immediately apparent. We have since had lots of conversations. There's been times where, you know, something has happened and I've reached out to you or you've reached out to me, and I'm like, man, I just don't understand it. Yeah. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Whatever it happens to be. And we sat on my porch a few times and had some of those conversations. Yeah. Hamm doesn't drink, so I would sip bourbon and he would sip sweet tea, and you know, I would just listen sometimes. And one of the topics that came up, and I, you know, this one I struggled with for a long time, and I get it. But there's still pieces of it that I don't understand. And that's the concept of the media uses the term white privilege. We've heard that. And when I first heard that term, I, like many other white people, said, what do you mean I'm privileged? I've got everything I have, I've worked for, right? And you hear that a lot.
Right.
Nobody handed me anything, because we misunderstand what's meant by that term.
100%.
Help me understand, when you hear that term, or if you've used that term, what does it mean from your perspective?
From my perspective, it's more of a bias, and whatever the situation is, it's the white bias, something that I don't get.
Mm-hmm. A benefit of the doubt is how I've heard it described.
That's even better.
So you mentioned Ahmaud Arbery, and there was no benefit of the doubt given to him in the moment.
No.
But if it was me, there would be a benefit of the doubt.
Well, I mean, even deeper than that, I can't think of the gentleman that killed him, but even if those people were black, the situation totally would. When the police got there, they immediately got preferential treatment, and it was immediate. Like, everything they said was gospel. Even the investigation, and I mean, that's a great example of white privilege.
Mm-hmm. And that's an extreme, but it's subtle too. One of the conversations that you and I had, I don't know if you even remember this, but it hit me so hard that I just was like, wow, I've known you a long time, and I know your character, and I know who you are, and you're one of the nicest dudes I've ever known. You're like top 5 nicest guys I've ever known.
I appreciate that.
And you said to me, and if you don't know Hamm, you would instantly agree, if you had an opportunity to get to know him, yeah, top 5 nicest dudes I've ever met. But you said that you had never, and I don't know if this has changed, because this was a couple years ago.
I know where you're going with this.
You remember?
It's still true. Yes.
It's still true. You said, I've never not one time had a positive interaction with a police officer.
Well, no, it's not that. So, and there's a caveat to that. I've never had a police officer that I did not know personally help me in any situation. Even if I have called the police, I've never had a police officer that I did not already know personally assist me.
Because you mentioned the one state trooper that, come to find out, you knew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that's been my entire life. And I mean, I try to stay on the right side of the law, For sure. So I mean, normally if I have it's gotten to a point that I've said I will never call the police again.
It's crazy.
That's wild, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And it's true.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, we're not talking about a dude that's, doing anything.
Yeah.
You don't do illegal stuff. That's not who you are.
No, no. And I mean, we're talking instance. My wife recently had a car accident, and she told me the police were on their way. And I mean, my blood pressure went through the roof. It's just, I've never had a police officer again that I don't know. No, I have friends that work in law enforcement, and they're amazing. Like, I mean, I know, and I say all the time, these guys that I know in law enforcement, they don't even have to know you, but they would lay down and die for you in that moment.
Sure.
But I mean, like, I've never had a police officer go, even treat me nicely in situations.
And and that's just interesting, because I've had a vastly different experience in my life, right? Even when I have been I'm not a lawbreaker. That's not what I'm saying. But, I was a teenager, right? And even in those moments, looking back, I'm like, wow, I really did get benefit of the doubt most of the time.
It's crazy.
And that's just kind of one example. The other thing, going back to that comment that I made about, well, what do you mean privilege, right? Everything that I've worked for. That's a fact, right? There's no doubt. My parents did a great job. They were working class, blue collar. They worked their tails off to provide for me and my brother, and showed us an example of work ethic. And, my brother and I have taken that, and we've worked hard, and we've got, plenty to show for it. And we've done a lot. But throughout that, especially looking back and being and wanting to understand this, I realize how often it's been easier for me, perhaps, than it has been for you, because you've worked your tail off. You're in a great spot. You're successful. You're a phenomenal coach. Everybody loves you. You've done a lot of cool stuff, but I bet it's been harder.
It's been extremely difficult. And I mean, I also, there, of course, little things like affirmative action and things. I don't know what behind the scenes have actually helped me.
Sure.
Me being a good number. I don't, of course, that's not something that's ever pointed out. So I'm sure I've had some benefits, but it's been extremely difficult.
Give me some examples of things that you have run into where that you've had to work harder than somebody else should have. You know what I mean?
Oh gosh, those examples are endless. Well, and I mean, it may just be my mindset, because I had it drilled into me at when I was young that you have to be it's unfortunate, it is what it is, but you have to be perfect. You've got to be 3 or 4 times better than the white guy beside you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I've always had that work ethic because I had it drilled into my head early.
Do you think that we have, as a culture, that we've made strides toward, I guess, rectifying that situation in your lifetime?
I think there has been some progression, but there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot more to go.
Do you think that having conversations like this and having people, different populations, call them allies, different populations, I mean, there's all kinds of different words for people that are in a position, a privileged position to what am I trying to ask here? To help, I guess. And there's a whole other topic I'm gonna bring up that kind of dovetails into this, because you can go a totally different direction with this. But how does somebody like me that sees it, that understands it, that wants to understand it better, right? I'm never going to experience it, because it is in my, you can disagree with me, put it in the comments if you like. Trent, if somebody does put it in the comments, let me know. I will never understand it the way that you understand it.
Right.
Because I can't experience it. Right. How does having a conversation like this help the situation?
I believe these conversations, they help. Well, I mean, I don't think, I think, unfortunately, mentally, you're part of the minority. I think the biggest thing is a lot of people are not interested in knowing the truth about what's going on and what's right in front of their faces. There's always some sort of deniability. There's always some sort of, I mean, again, we're talking about Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, in the beginning, he's a criminal who's breaking into houses. There's always some way to deflect it when something wrong happens. And it just to me, on the outside, well, not on the outside looking in, just really, it seems as though the first step is being genuinely interested in recognizing the problem. I think these conversations do help, but I don't think there are many who want to have these conversations,
or who are open to understanding and to accepting that, hey, there's work to be done.
For sure.
All right. So we'll jump into a true false thing. So true or false? You and I discussing differences magnifies the differences and actually makes the problem worse.
False.
I've heard that a lot, right?
Really?
Why don't we just focus on the ways that we're the same?
That would help. And honestly, that is what keeps the peace. But again, that kind of pushes the problem to the background.
What do you mean by that?
So concentrating on I mean, I believe that allows us not to be angry with one another and to actually come at each other. When you think about, what is it that we actually agree on? There are certain people that stand strong in their beliefs, and really it's just, and I mean, it goes way back to, I mean, even the freeing of the slaves and how they describe Black people as violent and I can't think of another term, but rapey, and where Black people were already villainized. And I mean, that's really just come forward a lot. So I mean, it does. I don't think that these conversations hurt. I just think that the whole point of concentrating on only on what we have in common, that does not even bring to light what we don't have in common. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it doesn't highlight the experience, and especially the experiences, right?
For sure.
You know, one of the terms that's also thrown around along with the term white privilege is systemic racism. And I would venture to say that there are very few people that are none, I hope, that are in my circles that look like me that would just be outwardly racist. You know, they would just be like, call you a name, you know, and just like blatant racism.
Right. Now it's more, we always say slick. Now it's more slick racism.
What do you mean by that?
So it's not you're just outwardly gonna say, you're gonna call me a name or anything like that. It's just you are already gonna label me based on how I look, and basically put me in that place that you already think that I deserve without knowing word one about me. It's not outward,
mm-hmm.
but it's, you know, the example I'd give is if I were in a club, I would be waiting in the line while you're waving white people in.
Gotcha. And where do you, how does somebody, if so here's the thing, and I think that a lot of folks are not even aware when they perpetuate systemic racism. How do you become aware of that? And then what do you do about it? Right? If you said to me, Jonathan, you're racist, I would be like, holy cow, what are you talking about? You know, I might get offended.
That's different. So you immediately, if I call you racist, you would immediately say, you know, what did I do? Most white people, if you call them racist, the first thing they do is deny it. The first thing they say is, no, I'm not XYZ. I love this guy. He's black.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One of my best friends or whatever. Right. Yes. So how do you, because I know just based on where I was raised, how I was raised, you know, everything, and not raised by my parents. I'm not saying them necessarily, but just in general, there are things that I have to consciously say to myself.
Right.
Right. You know, how do you fix that? What do you do about that?
Well, you have to be self-aware, one. And I mean, really, unfortunately, I think we all have that. And I mean, I'm talking to the black community too. You know, I was in a wedding recently, and the music broke out, and there was one white person that stood out on the dance floor, and you're like, hey, look at the white guy, and like, you know, maybe I shouldn't have labeled him the white guy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think we all sort of do that. The first thing to do is become self-aware. And you said, you know, how do you fix it? You again, realize that you're treating someone differently and stop.
Yeah.
Treat everyone the same. I mean, I hate to say it this way, that even if, whether you're a nice person, you treat everyone nice, or you're even a butthole, be a butthole to everyone.
Yeah. Just don't differentiate.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. And that brings me to the other topic that I was going to bring up. And this is one, and I'll share it with you. And I don't know that you know that this happens. I'm sure you do. On the flip side of that, you know, there is a tendency sometimes for people, when they start to understand that A, that systemic racism exists, B, that they probably have participated in it in some way, shape, or form, right? Even if the way that they participated was to not participate, to just, oh,
right,
I'm out,
right.
You know, but they don't say anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's just as much, that's complicit.
Absolutely. Especially if you outright, you see something wrong and you do nothing about it, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, 100%, because you're not part of the solution.
Right.
So there's a couple ways that people can go with this. One of them is what I would call, and other people have called, a white guilt. You know, oh, I got to make up for this.
Right.
You know, oh, let me help you.
Right.
Let me fix this. Let me, you know, whatever. And we've had, you know, systemic guilt things. You mentioned affirmative action, and affirmative action can be used was used in some great ways, but then it was absolutely abused and almost became a villain in and of itself.
For sure.
So there's that, right? And then there's the what's the word here? There's almost an anger about it, right? That's not even the right word. A jealousy of some sort, right? One of my favorite video clips that I've seen in a long, long time, and I forgive me, I don't remember who the parties were in the video, but there was a black journalist, and he had a white guest on his show, and the white guest said something about, well, if a black guy uses the N-word, then that's okay, but if I use the N-word, then I'm a racist and blah blah blah. And the black guy goes, well, then say it. You have my permission. Say it.
How did that end? I don't think I've seen it.
That's how it ended, right?
Yeah.
But it is interesting, the way that we look at things and we pick out little tiny sound bites and things to perpetuate and justify bad behavior.
For sure. But I mean, also that's in all aspects of life too, right? Not just in racial progression or regression.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be sometimes we're doing both.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. So how does somebody, once they're aware of things and once they think through, and there's some things that, quite frankly, my own ignorance, I've said or done or thought or whatever, and I'm like, and then somebody points out to me, you know what the history of that is?
Yeah.
Or you realize that, and I'm like, oh no, I had no idea.
But I mean, you're doing right. You're educating yourself. You've got to. I mean, of course, there's you have to recognize what you don't know and explore it and find out the root of it. A lot of times, it's ugly.
Mm-hmm. So if you let me throw this one out there, because I've heard this one before, and now when I hear people say it, like it just gets under my skin, right? And I've heard people say it specifically about you before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And not you, but there's another friend of mine as well, and it's he's the, what am I gonna say?
The exception?
No, the whitest black dude I've ever met.
Oh yeah, that is the worst.
What in the world is that?
And and of course I've had it said to me several times, and I can never get a clear answer. What does that mean?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, exactly. What does that mean? And no one can ever make it make sense. And I mean, the same thing goes to the opposite. That's the blackest white guy. Like, what does that mean? What we have to eliminate that.
And do you think, I try my hardest to give people benefit of the doubt? Like it's just built in me, right? I really truly want to believe that you are doing good things and you're trying to do the right thing. Right. So when I hear that, I'm with you. Well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And I want to believe that they are trying to somehow relate somebody that's different to a sameness kind of thing. And somehow it integrates the friendship into, I don't even know.
Well, there's another one also. And I believe it sort of fits together. It's you talk white. Like,
oh yeah.
Again, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. And then that goes, there's all kinds of iterations of that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure I've heard them all.
Yeah. So how, again, I have another friend of mine that we talk all the time about. I'm going in circles here, so give me just a second.
No, totally fine.
We talk all the time about going back to affirmative action, and then a move for diversity and a move for inclusion and things like that. And his thing is, we don't try to move toward a numerical diversity, right? We don't try to say, okay, there's 10 people here, 2 of them need to be this, and 2 of them need to be that, and 3 of them need to be this, but instead we go for the diversity of thought, right? Diversity of experience, that kind of thing. Right. And that's really what matters. If you were the guy that was pushing all the buttons, which he's in IT, so he is the guy that pushes all the buttons. How do you, like laying out a 50-year plan, how do we get there?
So I believe the answer, and it's, you know, it's kind of cloudy. It's going to be as clear as mud. But the first thing is basically you have to have everyone on level ground. I mean, and that's very difficult because we all have different degrees of intelligence, work ethic, and all of that. However, if the whole point is, especially, I mean, in America, the whole point is to be inclusive of everyone. What's the quote on the Statue of Liberty? Bring your huddled masses of whomever. But if you look around in a lot of different spaces, that's not the case. Everyone either, I mean, even in the Black community, whatever community you're in, a lot of people either look the same or they have the same ideologies. And I mean, really, it's the only way is to basically, and you don't have to segment it by race or make sure if you have 10 people have certain percentages of it or whatever. It just the sharing of ideas and choosing. I believe a room should have diverse ideas. I mean, I don't, but we migrate towards people that have the same ideas.
We do.
So I mean, I belied the answer. I'm sorry. I'm going a long way to get to the answer. This
is much easier with bourbon. I'm just telling you.
I'd imagine so, but it'd probably be more profanity laced. But the thing is to change that mindset. Stop migrating towards people that have the same ideas as you, and include more people that don't. And I believe that's the way to get the greater understanding.
Yeah. That's hard.
It is, but I think it's sort of interweaving. It's sort of for us, we're different. We came. I mean, in the wrestling community, like it's never is the person white, Hispanic, Black, whatever. The question is always, can he wrestle? Can he go? So I mean that forces you to have a room full of usually rejects, usually
a lot of times,
usually people that got bounced from other sports, and it's a melting pot. And I mean, in that environment, it runs the gamut.
Yeah. One thought, one concept that has always intrigued me, and I am so torn on this one word. Okay, I guess it's actually two words. Maybe it's hyphenated. I don't know. Whatever. Should we be colorblind? Right, in the classic sense of how that word is used when it comes to race relations, I hear a lot of people, no, I'm completely colorblind.
Yeah, I hear that too, and I think that's highly inaccurate. No matter who says it, it's not whether or not you see a person's color; it's whether or not you see a person. If that makes any sense.
It does. So is it actually because here's the thing: if I'm completely colorblind, and you and I are out together, right? Out in public together, there's a really decent chance that you and I are going to get treated differently.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
And if I'm colorblind, I'm not prepared for that.
Right. And that's a really great point. And so I have a friend, and he was telling me a story when he was a kid. Of course, he has there's an interracial marriage somewhere in his family, and he's hanging out, with the kids who are Black. And he was like, he was just walking down the street, and this guy was sitting on his porch, and he just started dropping N-bombs, pointing at, and he said, he was a kid, he was so naive. He's like, who is he talking to? He's like looking around, and of course the one kid was like, he's talking to me. And then of course that's when the problem erupted. But yeah. I mean, again, like, if you say you're colorblind or you're just naive, in this case, like he was, like, you don't really understand what that means. You don't understand like what the problem is.
So the sentiment behind that, of course, is that I'm going to be your friend no matter what color you are. And I get that. But what is the alternative that is an ally position that is effective, but is also what you're trying to go for with colorblind? Like, what do we call that?
I don't know if there's an actual term for it, but I mean, what it looks like is, and I mean, you're not, embracing the fact that you're different and embracing the fact that you have different ideas. Nowadays, no one likes opinions that are different from their own. Everyone wants that. And
social media exacerbates that problem.
Oh gosh, absolutely. The thing
purposely,
is,
right?
Yeah.
By algorithm.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, you just, the answer is to embrace the differences. I mean, realize that you're different, and I mean, learn to appreciate all the differences.
So how do you do that?
It's mindset.
Okay. What do you mean?
You just
program me for a second, IT guy. What's the right mindset here?
The right mindset is basically just what I said. Realize that you generalize people, and I liken everything to wrestling. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We always say in wrestling, embrace the suck. Like whatever's hard, you don't fight it, you embrace it. And it's the same thing as far as people go. I don't think that we have two different backgrounds. So I think you and me are a bad example. However, if I did have a drastically different background, just learning what yours was like, and I mean, not saying, oh, that sucks, oh, I could never do that. It's like, how was that? Like, let me feel that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, really just embrace it. Change your mindset of, oh, I don't want to deal with that because I can't imagine it, or I don't like it, or it's uncomfortable, or whatever. Embrace it.
And I think so. I'm gonna add on to that. Believe it.
100%.
Right. So if I'm sitting here talking to you, and I've done this, I mean, I know that I've done this. You're talking to me. You're telling me these stories. When you told me about the interaction with police officers throughout your life. Yeah. My brain immediately was, oh, come on.
Yeah.
There's no way that's true.
Come on. For most Black complaints, that's how it's dealt with.
Yeah, there's
no way.
Like that's not possible.
Because I can't relate. That's why.
Yeah. And then almost always it goes to, well, what were you doing? What did you do?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because there's no way that's true.
Right. And I mean, you and I, we've had a laugh about a movie we saw, and he's like, we were arrested for driving while black.
Yeah,
and it was like
it was a misdemeanor.
Yeah, yeah, we're talking about that one. I mean, again, no, that never happened. And I mean, really, I mean, in the movie, of course, it's fake, but I mean, in the movie, that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's a joke in the movie, because
right,
it's relatable.
Right.
Interesting. And here's the thing, full disclaimer, I have a ton of friends that are police officers, and I know that I want to believe that there's no way that they would treat you different than they would treat me. Right. And I believe that about my friends, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, again, I mean, I've mentioned, I've got a ton of friends that are police officers, and I don't know if I said that during this conversation or not, but I mean, I know that they don't have to know you. They'll lie down and die for you in that instant if it called for that. And I mean, but in the same time, you know me as well. I'm not a lawbreaker. And I mean, if I go to a questionable neighborhood, I mean, this has happened. If I go to a questionable neighborhood and I'm leaving there and a police officer pulls me over, he's going to treat me just like he's treated every person from that neighborhood. I've actually had that happen as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So growth comes with knowledge, right? Growth comes with accepting that what you're telling me, number one, seeking out, and I hate to say it this way, but the other side, right? Because it's not like a two-sided issue. There's, it's a freaking Dungeon and Dragons dice right here. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's multiple sides, right?
Yes.
Little D&D nerd stuff right there, but it's being open to the fact that maybe there are people in this world that are great people that you love, that you interact with on a regular basis, that have had drastically different life experiences than you.
Oh, for sure.
And then wanting to learn about those and almost wanting to be wrong in a way in order to learn how to be more right later.
For sure. And I mean, that goes, another thing that I want to point out, especially people that have different experiences, whether they're good or bad, a lot of times, another feeling, you can get jealous of how that person has lived and
sure,
and things like that, and that also alter the way that you react to them and treat them from that point on. And
that's interesting. So we've talked about jealousy, we've talked about guilt, we've talked about deniability, and we've hit a bunch
in a short time.
Very short, yeah. So you are one of the best. When we were coaching together, you would give not these long, like win one for the Gipper, 20-minute pep talks, but you would give like 45-second little
I call them promos.
nuggets.
I call them promos.
Promos.
In professional wrestling, when the guy gets on the microphone, it's called a promo. And I say I shoot promos all the time.
Yes, you do. You do. You were phenomenal at that. And I remember we would get ready for a duel, and I would say whatever, and the kids were like, and you would be like, blah 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 blah, and everybody's like, I'm like,
I think it's a gift. I still do that. I'm thinking back to something I said just yesterday, and it was the same thing.
It's hilarious. So for somebody out there that genuinely wants to learn more, that genuinely wants to grow, and just maybe they're not even to the point where they want to change anything, right? Maybe they just want to understand a little bit better, and maybe they want to hear some of these terms that, because of deniability, they're almost offensive, right? Like, I know a lot of people that if they hear the term white privilege, immediately they're like, ooh, they bristle up. And what do you mean?
Or normally it's shot down. It's the same thing as saying you're racist. It's immediately shot down. No. Hey, you know Jesse. Jesse's black. I love him. That's.
And I've worked hard for everything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you didn't.
And it's not like all of that's untrue. I mean, maybe you do love Jesse. Maybe you have worked hard, but that doesn't eliminate you from white privilege.
Right. And so what would you tell somebody? Give me a promo, if you will. You got to be in the moment, man. Do I need to like cross-face you a couple times?
No.
Give me a promo for somebody that is gonna go out and seek some understanding here.
I don't know if a promo's necessary, but I mean, really, what you should do. I mean, the first step in anything is don't say anything. Just observe and observe yourself and observe what's around you. It's not even anything that you need to outwardly. You don't even have to share with anyone. How do you treat everyone the same? That's the biggest question. And I mean, it's rhetorical. Don't answer. Just pay attention to yourself. When you see people, do you label them immediately? And I mean, again, rhetorical. Just pay attention. Pay attention to your behaviors. First, recognize what it is that you're doing wrong, and then make changes.
Yeah, and maybe you're not.
Right.
And that's great. And now you're more self-aware.
Right. Well, you said, I always, when I have these talks, I always say the same thing. It doesn't even have to be a black guy. What if a Latino, a Mexican, or someone, if a Latino person runs up to your grandmother, knocks her down, and takes her purse, how are you going to describe this person? Of course, I mean, that's your grandmother. You love your grandmother. Of course, it's not going to be friendly, but that'll tip you off as to how you deal with race relations.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then compare that if a white dude did that.
100%.
That's interesting. Trent's face just went, wow. Yeah, you can't see Trent, but that's good. That's good stuff. Cool, man. Hey, we're pretty good. 45 minutes.
Oh man, I'm enjoying this. This is
outstanding.
Awesome. Maybe we'll do a part 2.
I can't see why we wouldn't. All right. So here's what I would challenge you to do. Put some comments in. Challenge us. Right. Challenge me. Am I completely full of crap? It's possible.
I would love to know that too, for sure. Tag me in it. I mean, because we all can grow. I believe me. I get criticisms all the time. Maybe not constructive, but I get criticisms all the time.
Yeah.
Did I mention I do the rankings?
I was gonna say try ranking all the wrestlers out there. Are you still doing that?
I'm still doing it.
Oh, you have said for years that you're going to quit doing that.
I have said that. And I'm saying it again now after this year. I'm not doing it.
I don't buy it for a minute. Not for a minute.
You know what? I had, again, self-realization. I realized that it meant a big deal to me when I was in high school. And I'm the only one to do it. People pop up and they do it maybe once or twice and then they're gone. My fear is that if I stop doing it, they won't exist. And I mean, it meant so much to me. I want it to mean a lot to the kids. So that's why I keep doing it.
Yeah, but I know some of your secrets on those rankings.
Yeah. my closest circle knows about the sandbagging. And, oh yeah.
All the stuff you've been accused of. You're like, no. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good stuff. Hey, thank you again for watching. Again, participate in the conversation, and look, if you really want to participate, come be on the show.
Yo,
yeah, let's do this.
We did get a couple of comments. You want to hear them?
Yeah.
All right. So Jimbo Griffey said, round of applause, guys.
Thanks, Jimbo.
Thank you so much.
I like that guy.
And then someone on YouTube, their page is called Republicans Are Wackos, said God bless.
Okay.
Those are the two that we got so far.
We need to have that person on as well,
like,
because I'm not necessarily agreeing with that.
Oh, man, I just kind of thought that was funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That could mean so much.
So much.
I mean, where is the line?
I would probably go humans are wackos.
That'd be easier. That'd be easier. Sorry, not trying to do the divisive party thing. We always steer clear of that. Here's STP.
Let me go ahead and state my stance on this. Both parties are wackos.
That's beautiful.
Well, not both. All.
Yeah.
Every party.
Do I give a crap about what you think, not about what you think?
Right. It's more, I don't like it. You shouldn't like it. No one should like it. That's the dangerous one.
Mm-hmm. No. Let's think let's think on our own. Sometimes.
Oh gosh, yes. Let's please.
Yeah.
Actually, for certain people, don't think on that.
That's fair. That's actually fair. Okay, I sit corrected at this moment. Yeah.
This was awesome, though.
This was. Let's do it again.
Let's
do it. All right. Hey, thank you guys for watching. Again, drop some comments, and if you have any mortgage needs, talk to my friend Bryan. If you have any real estate needs, talk to me. If you need your computer fixed or your kid ranked in wrestling,
don't call me.
Thanks again. See you.